Okay, so hello again, class. You should have watched the other two videos that I posted on different sampling techniques, and that should help you understand sampling a lot better. We're just going to go through the back of this sheet and talk about a few more issues with bias and practice some questions just to make sure that we really get it. And again, this is going to help us with the two assignments that you have to do for 3.11 and 3.12. So when questions are sensitive in nature, so where there's a question where someone might be embarrassed by their response, or maybe it's dealing with some personal and confidential information, there needs to be careful consideration of how the survey is conducted. So people may be more likely to respond honestly if they can reply anonymously in writing rather than responding to an interviewer in person or on the phone. Okay, so let's work through some of these examples. So I'll read you the example. Again, when we do the examples, I suggest that you pause the video, answer the question on your own, and then unpause it as we take up the answers. So example 1 says, a coffee-loving student plans to collect data to see if there is a relationship between the number of cups of coffee a person drinks per day and how happy the person feels. The student plans to stand outside a coffee shop on Saturday morning, hand out a free cup of coffee to each participant, and survey 100 people. The questions asked will be 1. How many cups of coffee do you drink in a day? And 2. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is very unhappy and 10 is very happy, how happy are you? And what you need to answer is, why will the survey results be invalid? And how could the survey be improved? So think about that. Okay, so obviously this is not valid. Not just because it's suggested by the question. Now, there are some problems with the question and the questioning technique because unhappy people may not be comfortable answering honestly. So if you are really unhappy, why do you want to tell this stranger that you're unhappy? So unhappy people may not be comfortable answering honestly. Okay, and there's many issues with the survey, but this is one issue. Another issue is that people might actually perceive themselves to be much happier at that moment than they might on another day of the week, or maybe even before they were offered that free cup of coffee. So people could be happier because it's Saturday, or because they have just received free coffee. So these results might be misleading. Now, there's other things that are obviously misleading too. The person is standing outside a coffee shop. So they're talking to people who already enjoy coffee, and getting their coffee fix would make them happy as well. So why don't we also add that somewhere here. They're also standing in front of the coffee shop. So how could this be improved? I haven't left very much space to answer that question. Well, if it's going to be improved, they really need to do some sort of simple random sample, or any of the other random sampling techniques on the other side of the page. Okay, it needs to be much more random and not done like this. A town has a population of 20,000 people. The town council conducts a vote at a public meeting about constructing a new ice hockey rink. Here it says 50 people attended the meeting, of whom 37 people voted in favor of the rink. What percent of the people at the meeting voted for the rink? So here we're trying to assess, is their sample size large enough to make conclusions? So 37 out of 50 people. If I go 37 divided by 50 and multiply that by 100, that's going to give me my percent. And when I work that out, I get 74%. So 74% of people at the meeting voted for the rank. Now an interesting question to ask is, what percent of the people in the town actually attended this meeting? Well, 50 people went to vote, attended the meeting, out of 20,000. So when I divide those numbers and then multiply by 100 to get my percentage, this is only 0.025. Whoops, I got my decimal in the wrong spot. It's 0.25%. Sorry, that looks a little bit messy. So again, this says 0.25%. It's not even a percent of the people in town who attended the meeting. Okay, so that is not nearly close to that 10% guide. So if they really wanted to have a more accurate representative or feel like they really understand what people in the town want, it would be nice to get 10% of the population. However, you're going to see that this is quite high as well. So 10%, if I do 0.1, that's the same as 10 over 100, and multiply it by the 20,000 people in the town. That gives me 2,000. So 2,000 people should be part of the survey if we want to have 10% of the people represented, 10% of the population. So 2,000 people should be studied or asked the question. Okay, and then again, the 10% is a very general guide. There's actually more specific guidelines in statistics when determining your sample size. So is the method of collecting data biased by having this town meeting? Absolutely. Because people who really want the rank would probably go to this meeting to vote, and maybe people who are adamantly against it might also attend. But there's probably a lot of people who have an opinion but couldn't be bothered to go to the meeting. So yes, this does present a lot of bias. And again, we've got this volunteer-based sample. Okay, so I want you to do the guided practice. You're going to pause the video and then resume it when you're done. Okay, so it says identify whether each question is biased or unbiased. So let's say I asked you this question. We will be doing distance learning 1 day per week. Which day would you prefer? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday? And let's say you were supposed to put a check mark beside the one that you wanted. Is that biased or unbiased? Well, to me that's a pretty unbiased question. However, what if I said this? There are studies that prove that students learn most effectively after the weekend. We will be doing distance learning 1 day per week. Which day would you prefer? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday? Well, then you might lean towards answering Monday or Tuesday, especially if you think that the math is important, and that would then be biased. 2. Would you conduct a survey using a personal interview or a written form for these 3 different situations? So A, if we were analyzing household income and the amount of money spent on vegetables. Well, whenever you're asking someone how much money they make, this is a sensitive topic. So that written form would be better. If you were asking people about their favorite show and their grade, people may not mind being asked that question, might answer it pretty honestly, so either might be fine. And the last question is whether people have bullied another individual. Again, this is sensitive. People may not want to admit to this because they're worried that you might think differently of them. So this is also sensitive information. So you want to do this in your written form and you want it to be anonymous. Okay, I want to go back and do example 1 a little bit more before we finish here. So, because again, this is going to help you with your assignments. So how could this survey be improved, the one with the coffee? I mentioned simple random sampling, but let's talk a little bit more about what could actually have been done. So maybe if you have a list of phone numbers and you use the phone book as a source of numbers, maybe you then call, I don't know, maybe every 100th person on a list. And then you ask them this question, okay, until you get your 100 people. Or maybe you're more interested in this result with a particular age group. And perhaps, let's say at this point, you're in college. So maybe you have a list of students who attend the college, and then you end up maybe mailing a survey, or you do the telephone survey again, or you ask them, direct them to a website or some sort of Google form to answer the question, but you randomly select the students from a list. There's also random number tables where you can use the table to help randomly pick someone. You could use the nth person, so maybe decide that every 50th person on the list is going to answer these 2 questions. You might also want to define happiness a little bit more. Okay, so those are all more specific things that you could do to improve the survey. All right, class. Again, this lesson is quite important, especially those videos about the different sampling techniques when you are doing the 2 assignments that you're going to hand in. Okay, have a good week, everyone.